All right, so here we go. So we are going to play with a set of data about a small company with 12 employees. Are you ready? The numbers are already in order, so we're going to do this one by hand. Typically, we would just load everything in our calculator. We will do that later today, but we're going to do this one by hand. So if we want to calculate the 5-number summary, the first thing you're going to search for is the median. Now, if there are 12 employees, that means that if I divide 12 by 2, I get 6 and 6. So I'm going to go ahead. The numbers are already in order, and I'm going to count up 6 values, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and put a line after the 6th piece of data. And so that means my median is between 34 and 35 exactly. What was our median going to be?
34.5.
Very good. 34.5. That's pretty easy. Median. And now we have the number 6. So you're kind of actually finding the median again, this time of a smaller set. So if I have 6 pieces of data, that breaks into 3 and 3. So I go 1, 2, 3, draw a line, and it's between 34 and 34. So I guess it must be 34. And that's going to be our lower quartile. We do the same thing on the other side. So either from the back or from the median, it doesn't matter which, or just divide them into 2 piles of 3. And now you have a 39 and a 43. If you can't, do the counting in your head to get it.
41.
Yep, that one's a pretty easy one. You can always find the average of those 2 numbers, which is adding them up. Whoops, that's supposed to be a 43. A 43 and divide by 2. So when you're trying to find a number in between 2 numbers, you can find the average of those 2 numbers. And so this is the 3rd quartile or the upper quartile, whatever you want to call it. Then the last thing I do is I say, okay, that means 29 is my min and 185, holy bananas, is my max. Now let's just talk briefly again about what these numbers are. They are salaries, annual salaries in the thousands. So the smallest salary is $29,000 a year, which right now that is, I don't believe, a living wage. $185,000, that's a good place to be at. So let's pray that this data is just slightly out of touch. Okay. However, it is pretty representative, I think, of what happens in companies in general, because if you look, we have 25%, another 25%, and another 25% that's less than 41,000. And then you have these 2 pieces of data up here. Now, when we make an actual box and whisker plot, this is where the box gets made, right? And then we just go down and we would make our box plot like that. And that whisker would be extremely long. Okay, so we could see clearly that this data is skewed right. All right, so knowing that there is 25% in each part of the box, here we go. Let's speed answer these questions. What percent of data is less than Q1? 25%. Are you with me? Yeah, 25% each section. What percent of data is below Q3? 1, 2, 3. So 75%. Woo! What percent of data is above Q1? 1, 2, 3. Also 75%. This is really exciting. What percent of data is above the median? Well, the median cuts it in half, so clearly that's going to be 50%. And then let's make sure we remember, what do the letters IQR stand for? Here we go. It's on your reference sheet, I believe. Let's look. It is. The words are on your reference sheet. Interquartile range. So it's the range. That's not the entire range, it's the inner range. It's from Q1 to Q3. So it is 50% of the data. And that 50% of the data, when we start to talk about spread, and the reason why it's a box is that's where your eye is drawn, right? You're not necessarily drawn to the visual of the whiskers, you're drawn to the visual of the box. The center 50% of data is in there. So outliers are the things that are possibly outside the box. Now, you may have outliers, you may not have outliers. You might have outliers on the left, you might have outliers on the right, you might have outliers on both. Just depends. So there is a standardized formula to determine the extreme high and low data values. We plot them with dots. You can also use asterisks to plot them. And then we adjust the whiskers, and that's actually probably the hardest skill in this whole thing. We adjust the whiskers so they're within the boundary lines. Boundary lines sometimes are also called fences. Okay, so you have to be in the fence to be considered data that is not extreme. The next thing to say is when we do make a box plot with all of this extra stuff, it's going to be called a modified box plot. So the idea of modifying it is you are analyzing it more and doing something different if there are outliers. All right, so we're going to run through this outlier calculation at least 4 times today. So you learn it, okay? So on your reference sheet, first of all, can you guys find the words interquartile range, and then underneath it, find upper limit, lower limit, kind of, do you see those words? There's boundary, okay? So it's on the side that says descriptive statistics, not on the side that has the picture of the normal distribution. All right, so we're good there. So there are multiple steps to getting this taken care of. So the first thing is you have to run the 5-number summary, which we did up above, right? So let's just write down that 5-number summary. So we have min, Q1, median, Q3, and max. And so from up above, it was, I already forgot, 29. There, now I remember it. 29, 34, 34.5, 41, and 185, right? So that's 5 numbers that summarize the data. It's in our summary statistics on our calculator at the bottom. The next thing we have to do is, looking at this formula, we need the IQR, don't we? Right? So we need to calculate the interquartile range. That formula is on your reference sheet. The IQR is equal to Q3 minus Q1, or 41 minus 34, which is equal to 7. Very good. So there we go. We have an IQR equal to 7. And now we're ready to do our limits. All right. So it doesn't matter which one you do first, but you want to think about, I'm looking outside of the box, and I'm looking to the left of the box for a lower fence, and I'm looking to the right of the box for the upper fence. So for the, I'll do the lower first. That's kind of how I roll. The lower one is going to be, take the Q1 value and subtract 1.5 of the IQR. So 1.5 of the IQR. So what does that mean, and why are we doing it? We're looking at 150% of the IQR. If we're outside 150% of the IQR, that's pretty extreme, right? It's out there. And then we don't want it as really part of our data set. So we take 34, we subtract 1.5 of 7. And we're going to get the lower fence. We use the calculator. calculator, and we do the calculation. Oh, yeah, thanks, man. Woo! We get 23.5. This is the lower fence. Now, the lowest value is 29. Is the lowest value inside the fence or outside of the fence? It's inside the fence, right? So do we have any outliers on that side? Nope. They're all good. Okay, so now we do the upper boundary. So the upper boundary is, I look at Q3, which is the upper part of the box, and I'm going to add on 1.5 of the IQR. Or I'm going to take 41 and add on 1.5 of 7. I got 51.5,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
I did them
That's all right. So I did 51.5. 51.5 is the upper fence. So I'm just going to scroll real. Actually, I can see it here. This is on the next page. But do we have numbers that are outside the fence? Salaries that are bigger than 51.5? Yeah. So we have upper outliers. Okay. So after you calculate your fences, go ahead and make sure you have that and turn your page. Beep. Here we go. This is our data. So I'm just going to go like this. This was our fence, right? Our fence or our boundary was from 23.5 to, what was it? To 51.5. Right? There's outliers in our data, and they're only on the upper side. 43 is in the fence, but 67 outside the fence. Guess what is outside the fence? 185. So now this only slightly changes what our box and whisker is going to look like. 3/4 of the box and whisker is going to be exactly the same. This number, still the minimum, right? It's going to be a whisker. 34 is still Q1. It's going to be the beginning of the box, right? So there's that. 34.5 is still the median. Okay, so I have that line. Q3, hey, is 41, and that hasn't changed either. So here's my box. Okay, so that part is the same. Whee. Here we go. So this is what has changed. These two are now outliers. And so they're going to be either dots or asterisks up here. This is not to scale. This is just a little sketch. Does that make sense? So now this is the hard part. This is the hard part. Ah! Where is the whisker going to end? It's the first piece of data that is not an outlier. So this whisker is going to be at 43. Boink. And that's where the box and whisker ends, and then you have your outliers. Remember that when you do outliers, this is called modified. So I'm writing that word for the second time today. Here we go. Now, this is clearly not to scale because we're working with a thing. Let's go ahead and actually graph this guy and see how crazy ugly it is. Yes. Here we go. Whoop, not a question. We need to draw a lovely axis. Oh, that's white. I don't want that. Back it up. There we go, black. There we go. There we go. We need to go from 29,000 to 185,000. We're going to count. So this is annual salary. In thousands of dollars. That K means thousands. Page 27. Okay. So now here we go. This is how we're going to make our scale. We're going to make this first line 20,000. And every line is going to be worth 10, but we don't have to mark off every line. So I'm going to go skip one and make this 40,000. Skip one, make this 60,000. 80. 100. 120. 140. 160. And 180. And sorry, 200. Okay. A box and whisker also does not have as much tick tick, label kind of stuff going on. Hello, how are you?
I'm good.
Excellent. Let me get you here. So let's see. Next. Okay, so we're on the top of page 27, kiddo. Okay, so this annual salary in thousands of dollars, we could just call this small company a payroll. I don't know. I'm just making that up. Okay. Payroll. We don't have a company name. It's a small company. All right. So this is where making this box and whisker actually becomes kind of obnoxiously challenging. So I'm going to zoom in super hard on this axis right here. So as I plot, it makes sense. Here we go. So the first thing is our minimum. It's at 29. So this is 20, this is 30. 29 is going to be just before the 30 line. And now this is the fun part. Here we go. Q1 is 34 and the median is 34.5. Essentially, it's going to just look like a thick line, right? Or you could try to separate them, but it's going to be a little bit sloppy right there and there. And then we have 41, which is Q3. And so if we were to actually draw the non-modified box plot, right? The normal box plot. There would be a line up here. So don't draw this part, but just look what would happen. If it was non-modified, it would look like that. Is that kind of silly looking? Okay. So I'm going to get rid of those, which are, this is still a pretty silly looking graph, but we'll bear with it. So instead, 43 was our highest salary inside the fence. We don't draw the fences on the graph. It's nice to know where they are. It's just kind of interesting. So remember, our first fence was at like 21, 23. So if I were to draw a fence, it would be here, but I don't draw it. The other fence was 51. It'd be around here, right? And that's because it's determined by the box. All right. Well, We got two salaries that we still got to graph. We have 67, right? So you can do a blob if you'd like. That works. Oops, that's not where 67 is. Hold on, erase. 67 is going to be over here. And then way up here is 85. And I'll zoom out then so you can see the whole thing. All right. Okay. All right. So why is it good to see outliers? Because it can tell us what values are really extreme. Couple things, right? This does really happen. If you think about businesses like even like McDonald's, is there someone who's maybe the manager of the store who might be here, and then the owner of the store who might be there, and then everybody else is in the fence, right? That's kind of how businesses. That's how, actually, if you own a business, that's what you want, right? You want. I mean, you don't want to cheat your employees, right? But like at the same time, you're paying for the people down here who are working for you, and hopefully you're reaping the benefits of that. There are lots of small business employers that don't pay themselves because they're just trying to make their businesses work. So the reality is that doesn't always happen, but that's why Shark Tank is so fun to watch. You know what I mean? Like, it's the American dream. Okay, so we're going to pause there in the lesson, and now we're just going to practice this skill using our calculators 3 more times. I'm going to do one with you, side by side, writing out all the directions, and then you got 2 to do independently. Cortez, do you need to use the restroom right now?
Yeah, I was waiting till we finished live.
Okay, so
right now.
You're good. Okay, so I mean, I don't know. I can probably override your pass. Oh, you did. You went. Okay, good. I didn't know if I could override it or not. I'm going to pass this out. You probably can get caught up on this when you come back. Okay, here's 2 for you. And 1. And 2. And 2.
I hope it is, because the only one I did.
There we go.
Yeah.
Comfy. Yeah. There's that.
Why the heck are you drawing some random man in a
And
cage?
Sydney's going to be here. Wait a second now. Take off all the eraser growths. Okay, 1 and 1 and 1. Okay, we're back at the beginning. All right, so here we go. All right, so first thing you're probably going to want to do is turn on your calculator, and I would get a new document. So home, do a 1 to get a new document, and then add a list or spreadsheet. So you guys always want to do that. And then you also might want to clear the flying calculator, aka the scratch pad. So to clear the scratch pad, you click on that. Mine is empty, but you just do Doc B, and that will clear it if there's stuff in there. And then you just hit escape to get rid of it. So the flying calculator is for those little calculations that we need to do, but then we just want to put that calculator to the side. That's what's cool about flying calculator. All right.
Wait, I'm confused.
Which part?
Oh, never mind, I figured it out.
Okay, good. All right. So here we go. And I'm just going to go to a small one, handheld only. All right, so here we are. We have our worksheet, and we have a list of data, and we are going to work on outliers. So the steps, here we are. We're going to be really obnoxious about this. Number 1 is to load the data in your calculator. Load data in calculator. And we're going to write the first 3 steps down, and then we're going to do it. We're going to run summary statistics. That gets us the 5-number summary. And then we're also going to put the data in order. Because it's not a difficult task. All right, I now need to find out where my dude has gone. I usually do put a title in my list. I might just put like an X because I don't know what this numbers mean, but whatever. So I'm going to call it X. And now I'm going to type in my data. This is data without meaning. Just numbers. All right. So remember to run one variable statistics. You just want to be anywhere in your column, and that's on your reference sheet as well. It's menu 411. And if there's only one list, you don't even need to change anything. So long as you're sitting in column 1, it will say my list is in A, put the results in B. I just hit enter again, and there it is. But I'm going to go back to list 1 and put it in order. And that's menu action 6. Okay. Hello, how are you? Good. All right. I think I put the worksheet we're playing with on your desk. We're practicing outliers. Okay. Is there anyone who needs more time with getting data in their calculator and sorted and that? Yes. So this is on your blue reference sheet. You're going to go into this column. You go all the way to the top, highlight it, and then it's menu 1 for action, and then 6 for sort, and then just make sure you get to the OK button by using tab or using the cursor. Okay? And then 1 variable statistics, you have to be in the white cells, and it's menu 411. Okay. So once you've kind of done all that initial stuff in your calculator, then you're going to record your 5-number summary. And the 5-number summary is the 5 numbers we use to make a box and whisker. We're going to then calculate the IQR, which is the interquartile range. Okay. All right. So when you do your 5-number summary, you just write down what the numbers are. So you say min, Q1, median, Q3, and max. This is in your 1 variable statistics down at the bottom. So you just cursor down. There it is. How do I do that? The 1 variable statistics? Was that, did someone ask that? There. Okay. So when you're on your calculator, it's under menu. So I usually, let me escape. I make sure that my cursor is in column 1 in the white. Okay. Then menu 4 for statistics, and you see the X bar for mean. Then you're doing stat calculations. So that's a 1. And 1 variable statistics, a mean is a 1 variable statistic calculation. You hit enter, you have 1 list, and then your data is in list A, your results in list B. So the default is good so long as your cursor is in that first list, and you just hit enter again, and it will run it. Okay, so now, cancel. So now I'm writing down my 5-number summary on my paper. So 10, 69.5, 82, 108.5, and 169. So that part's now done. I'm still going to need my calculator to do some, basic calculations, but for the most part, I'm done with the data, sticking the data in. So now I'm going to calculate my IQR. Which is Q3 minus Q1, 108.5 minus 69.5.
Never mind, I figured it out.
Okay. And then this is where the flying calculator is actually nice, right? So if I don't want to do that in my head, I pull up the flying calculator or the scratch pad, whatever you want to call it, 108.5 minus 69.5, and I get this 39. And then it's up to you if you want to keep the scratch pad up or go back to your data. We're going to continue using the scratch pad here in a minute. Okay. All right, so we loaded data, we ran data, we put the numbers in order. So we did a whole bunch of calculator work. Then we wrote down the stuff we need to make a box plot, and then now we're focusing on calculating our fences or boundaries. We need the IQR to be able to do that calculation. So up at the top, the formulas that are in your packet are written this way. On your reference sheet, I think they're just separated into 2 separate boxes, but everybody should see them under the IQR calculation. All right, so step 6 is to calculate your boundaries. And I use the word boundary. I spelled boundaries wrong. It's boundaries. Maybe that's right. Boundaries / fences. Okay, so I kind of use those words interchangeably. It's up to you if you want to write the formulas down or just plug into the formulas. However, I do see kids make lots of mistakes when they just try to work directly from reference sheet to paper and plug in. So I typically write down the formulas and then plug in. All right, so lower boundary is going to be Q1 minus 1.5 of the IQR, which equals. So now this is why I need my 5-number summary. 69.5 minus 1.5 of 39. I'm also going to do my upper boundary. Sometimes I do all this writing down before I pick up my calculator. This one's Q3 plus 1.5 times the IQR. So be careful, make sure you're using Q3. $108.5 plus that 150% of the IQR. Yes, so if you have your reference sheet, double check it, or someone next to you should have their reference sheet. Do you guys have them back there? They're blue? Okay, so they're under, I think, running one variable statistics, which was the thing you asked me to demo, right? So that's on there. Sorting is not on there. I misspoke, because it's not a necessary skill, but it certainly is a helpful skill. All right, so our boundaries are, did you guys get 11? Or am I just going too fast right now?
I just
You're lost? Do you want me to pause? Are you sure? Okay. So the lower boundary is 11, and then the upper boundary is 167. Oh, 67, 67. It's very funny. Okay, so those are my boundaries, and if I need to, I could have put my answers over there. I ran out of space, and I apologize. So now I'm going to actually identify the outliers. Do I have any outliers? So I'm going to take a pause and just kind of wait for you guys to catch up because I want to make sure we write stuff on both sides of the paper. So those of you that are coming back in, maybe try to find out what in the world is going on. So it's hard when your data is not in order as it is on the top of the paper, but it is in order in your calculator. So after we've calculated the boundaries, we're going to list the outliers. Right? We're going to list them. Jack, hello. We are also then going to determine where do the whiskers end. Based on the outliers. And then the last thing is to make a sketch of the modified box plot. I know, I overfilled, but I mean, this is pretty good. How much stuff we're putting in this one example. It's very thorough. You guys out there are like, what? What's going on? Okay, here we go. So there it is. There's the list of everything we need to be able to do still. I have not yet determined the five outliers. Oh, this is on the final exam. Yeah, man. That's why it's on the final exam reference sheet.
That's on the test we're taking this like right now.
Yes, this will definitely be on your unit test. You'll definitely practice it 2 more times and then a couple more times. It's just following a formula, right? Yeah. It's not hard. Okay? And it won't be like, make a modified box plot. It'll be like, what's the 5-number summary? Determine if there are any outliers. So it'll force you to be like, oh, what's an outlier? You'll have to go look for it, right? So why am I going so detailed on this is because this is like foolproof. You'll understand in a second. Here we go. The reason why we put our list in order, back to the calculator. Hit escape. Do I have any numbers, go to the top, that are less than 11?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, there's a 10. Is 10 an outlier? So 10 is an outlier. I know my calculator is really small. You should have the same thing in your calculator. When we go down to the other end, do I have any numbers above 167? Oh, I have 169, even another great number. So I have outliers on both ends. So here we go. This is why we want to take a pause and make sure we think about these other things. Because we know there's going to be an asterisk at the end or a dot at the end. I'll make a blob for 10, right? And we know there's going to be a blob for 169. And then we know we're going to have a box and whisker in between them. Am I right?
You're right.
But those whiskers are no longer the min and the max. And they aren't the fences either. They are pieces of data. Are you ready for me to go back to my calendar? I'll go full page. You need me to wait? People are drawing. Let me know when I can go. Okay to go? Okay. So when I go back to my calculator, and I'll go Woo! There it is. Oh, excellent. This is an outlier. What's just before it?
115.
That is the whisker. 115 is the whisker. It is the lowest piece, the piece that's inside the fence. We go back up to where the 10 is. Hang on. What's the piece that's inside the fence? 59. The 10 is out, the 59 is in. That's where the whisker goes. Okay. Questions about the process? What was your question? Okay, that's these two calculations. So the answer to this, and this is, I ran out of room, is 11. The answer to this is 167. So those boundaries are the invisible fence. If we have data outside the invisible fence, it's plotted like a dot. Then the whisker is the piece of data that's inside the fence. How are we feeling about the process, kids? Okay, so when you flip your paper, you guys have solid 10 minutes. You should be able to get at least one of these done. On your mark.
Can we work together?
Sure, why wouldn't you work together?